Everybody. My name is Brett Kestenbaum. I am one of the co-founders of newgradphysicaltherapy.com and CovalentCareers.com, two companies dedicated to helping physical therapists find jobs, mentorship, and education. With me today, I have next to me Dr. Ben Fung. Ben is a healthcare clinician turned into social media connector and serves as COO of UpDoc Media, a marketing agency for health and tech businesses, and as a CFO of Recharge, an investor-backed CrossFit physio mindfulness hybrid with a mission to redefine the healthcare experience by breaking down the silos of medicine, health, fitness, and wellness. That was a nice chunk of mouthful there.
Wow. You helped me.
Then also with us today, I have Chad Kuntz. Chad is a physical therapist based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, who is compassionate about helping others and providing a high quality of service. He is dedicated toward the field of health and fitness and views himself as the weight training specialist. Now we're here today for a couple of reasons. Hey, Chad.
What's up?
So everybody in the audience, we're here today for a couple of reasons. We want to provide you with this firsthand interaction between Chad, who is a up-and-coming entrepreneur. Chad graduated with me 3 years ago, and I think it's been 3 years now.
Yeah, something like about a little over that, 3.5, I think.
3 years.
Yeah.
And he's recently started his entrepreneurial journey, and he's actually reached out to me a bunch of times asking a ton of questions about entrepreneurship. So what we've done here is we've brought Ben in, and Ben is going to help answer a lot of Chad's questions. And I think this will be very valuable for everybody in the audience here, because you're really going to see what it's like to get started as an entrepreneurial physical therapist from the ground levels. Hear the story of Chad and what he's been going through in the beginning stages of his career as an entrepreneur. And then see that advice firsthand of what Ben has to offer when it comes to providing that advice for first-time entrepreneurs and really trying to tackle some of those questions that always come up. So Chad, tell us a little bit about how you got started off in your career and what made you decide to become more entrepreneurial as a physical therapist.
Yeah, so awesome, a great question. And I think there's a unique story for everyone where this starts for them. Mine was in high school. We didn't even have an athletic trainer. We didn't have a physical therapist. I was super interested in it. And so I actually took an athletic training class for in high school. And I looked at how many hours that they spend, the salary. And even as a modern day physical therapist, I was like, wow, that's really low, if that tells you something. So I was like, that's not for me. I went to undergraduate school, and my major was in health professions because I knew I wanted to be involved in physical therapy. And then when I was in, I went down to Nova graduate school, and that's where I met you, and we were doing our excuse me, whew, I'm excited, nervous, awesome. So I went the Nova graduate school, and we had we were there for 3 years, and then I had sorry guys.
No, it's all good. So this, just for everybody in the audience, this is one of the biggest points when you are starting out in your career. It's always very important to try out new things. And one of those new things is getting in front of an audience, doing any type of speaking. And learning that skill is a combination of facing one of the biggest fears, which everybody has, which is public speaking, getting in front of a wide number of people. I mean, this is going out on the internet, so obviously we're going to be chatting with a lot of people.
Forever.
Yeah, it's going to be out there forever, no pressure. But a big thing here is that over time you become much more comfortable. So Chad, it's great that you're getting on here today. Don't worry about how anything goes here. This is all completely educational, but it's, we both have been through the onboarding process of doing things online and in public and everything like that. So we commend you for your appearance as well.
Well, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for the break. Appreciate it. So in my 3rd year of grad school, we had a residency speaker come in, and I was super excited about that because I always knew that I wanted to be better, especially in the field of orthopedics, because I feel like within the field of physical therapy, you come out of that and it's very generalized, and I don't feel like you specialize enough. I always wanted to be that guy that's really good at what I do. And so I actually went out to Arizona and I had the pleasure of a 1-year residency program through A.T. Still University, and that's where I really honed in on my skills. And part of the process of me wanting to become an entrepreneur is because I learned what it takes to be really good at physical therapy. I learned to kind of self-reflect, to kind of go through step by step, to differentially diagnose. And really, it takes a lot of time and energy to be able to do that. When I started working out there, and despite the best of the best out there, my mentorships, the clinic that I work with, my boss, it was great. But as a lot of physical therapists know, it's high volume and it's bang, 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 patient after patient after patient after patient. And it becomes overwhelming, and to the point that I don't know if it's sustainable to be able to keep thinking through and to have that diligence of being better for your own clinical gestalt and to help out the patients. And I think it's a combination of compassionate fatigue and just the fatigue on your own stuff, just being able to sustain the amount of tension with every patient all day, every day, if you've got 20 plus patients. I just don't think that's reasonable. And it comes down to me wanting to help out people as much as possible. And I think that's where the energy comes from. So despite me, as you just saw like 20 seconds ago, having, getting nervous and excited about all this thing, it's because I'm so compassionate about wanting to do the best for the patient. And despite me having not, like you said, set up in the scenario to be able to talk about this, it's just because I get overwhelmed about how excited, and all the energy going into trying to, at the end of the day, provide the best care one-on-one for the patient. So my business background is very, very small, to be honest with you. And if anyone takes a point away from this, it's if Chad can do it, then anyone can do it. Because I didn't know anything coming out of this, and it's been kind of a nitty-gritty, hustle and bustle, find a way. And so I'm really excited to kind of get some answers just here, working with him, and to kind of start chiseling along and just try to, stay in the journey, stay focused, and to kind of give me more information to stay aligned to what I need to do. So really, it's a long-winded answer to say all those things allow me to provide the best service, that one-on-one care that I think we're all combating in that busy, typical, hate to say mill clinic, but the volume-based clinics, if you will.
So now tell us a little bit about the start of your business and really what your business concept is. And we'd also love to hear about the first sale that you ever made.
Nice. Awesome. So really, I view myself as a weight training specialist, and I think that there's a large gap between physical therapy and where we want to get people back into, which is the weight training field. And having a complementary, the CSCS, I actually took that in grad school, and I think that's a wonderful tool to complement the weight training and what you see in the clinic and in the gym. We need to find a way to slowly and allow the people to get from the clinic into the gym. And so I just actually set up in a gym. I was looking for a gym that would allow me to to work with the patients and allow them to get back into that weight training program that they really heavily desired. And I feel like very few clinics are doing that well. I think the corporate care kind of measly band exercise stigma that physical therapy has, I would really love to wash that away and to say, we want to get back to lifting heavy weights. We want to be known as the guys that can help you do powerlifting or strength training or getting you back on the bodybuilding show. I think right now, if you ask 100 people, 99 of them would say, well, I know they use Swiss balls and those little bands and maybe ultrasound, and that's it. Like, I don't really feel like anyone knows what we're doing. And I'd like to kind of be able to start to change that thought process of, no, Dr. Kuntz, he's a physical therapist. He helped me get back, and I'm lifting now more than ever. And they're like, what? That's not what a physical therapist does, is it? A lot of people don't know what we could do or what our potential is to do. And so that's a little bit of background about kind of what I want to aim for. My first patient, I was just excited. I finally had that full 1 hour, that golden hour to treat someone and to truly listen to the story and be compassionate about it. And while it was awkward and I was uncomfortable, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I had the right paperwork. Am I going to get sued? Like all these things, you start wondering, I'm not really sure, but I really want to help this patient, And so I offered at first, just kind of working with the new gym, kind of a free hour treatment here or there, just to kind of get the name out. And then when I first took like the first payment, it actually went through the gym because I didn't have a way of processing that. Like, there's a Square. I recently acquired a CardPoint, and they're a great, wonderful system to be able to easily process any of the transactions. But I had no idea at that point in time. So it was just more like I wasn't documenting anything. I probably should have been. Now I'm a little more conventional with the computer and using a new, EMR and Google Drive, that kind of thing. So the first one is just compassion, didn't know what was going on, and I kind of laugh when I look back. But hey, you have to start somewhere, and again, that's what we're kind of going through when we use this podcast. This is raw, real, and I think most, marketable social medias show the people way up here and there. How much are you going to make this month? Oh, I don't know, 10,000. What? I'm just trying to get off the ground. What happens from A to B? How did you get there? And that's what we're trying to fill in the blanks here, and I think that's why it's going to be so powerful.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you spoke about with that first client, that first patient, to get them to convert to joining your service that you offer.
Nice. Now, I wasn't probably as comfortable and fluent as talking to them back then as I am now in regards to how do you answer the question, are you going to take my insurance? I think that's, especially working into the cash pay, you're going to get asked that by everyone. I wasn't even good at answering that then. What I was good at is listening to her story and being compassionate and wanting to help her. And she saw right through that. It was very transparent, and she knew that she was going to get really good care. She was wanting to return back to work. There were some financial stressors. I think there was a lot going on for them. I think they had tried physical therapy, that lovely commoditized term that we always hear. And I'm like, did you try doctor? No, you saw a doctor. What do you mean you tried physical therapy? You saw a physical therapist. I was able to explain that concept to people, and you can kind of see them go, oh yeah, they did different things than you did. And again, that's where it comes back to this misunderstanding of what is physical therapy? What do we do? And a lot of people still don't know that. So if you can explain to them kind of how you would like to approach them after you very thoroughly listen to the story, you take them through some exercises, you explain your thought processing as you're doing it, you set your expectations, and you set what their expectations are. You listen to what they have to say. And too often physical therapists are always wanting to hear, or to say what they want to do. Well, are you listening to the patient? What do they want to do? If they're limited in shoulder flexion, you might set that goal for them, but then that may not mean anything to them. What if they want to be able to pick up their grandchild or something like that? Are you working towards that? Are you happy that they have full range? They'll look at you like, well, great, but I still can't pick up my grandchild. Like it means nothing to them.
Yeah.
So again, kind of a long-winded story, but it's to say, listen to the patient, and she could see that, and I still, have that compassion as I did that first day to listen to them and to achieve their goals, not just mine.
Now, Chad, something for you and actually everybody else in the audience. Fantastic book, and I would actually recommend the Audible version of this because it comes with an additional 15 hours of commentary. Is called How to Close the Sale by Zig Ziglar. It will absolutely change your life. It will change the way that you interact with patients. And really a lot of what we do is helping patients understand more about themselves and more about what can help them. And the way that we talk, just like you were saying, Chad, it has a major effect on that. And the goal is to allow them to realize that you are the person that they need in your life right now that can solve their issues that they have today. And being able to work with them to identify those issues for themselves that they have is important in allowing them to give you the permission to provide them with care. So again, right. Zig Ziglar, How to Close the Sale, 100% recommend it on Audible. If you don't have Audible, download Audible. It will be the best thing that you ever do.
Awesome.
So Chad, take us through what the biggest challenges for you have been so far in starting a new business. I know you've spoken on this a little bit so far.
Yeah.
But really, what has been that biggest thing, the hardest thing, the thing that keeps you up at night?
I gotta say, there's a few. I don't know if it's a single-headed monster. I think you coming out of accomplishing your dream, becoming the first doctor for your family, and being a physical therapist. Now you did it, right? Well, not really. I mean, I went and did a residency, and that was its whole other beast. But all that education is still within the realm of physical therapy. I mean, I haven't even delved into the business world yet at that point. And that's what, through 8.5 years of education at that point, and I still had yet to touch the business aspect of it. And we'd be foolish to think that it's not a business, and that at some level you have to market, and at some level you have to sell yourself. People physical therapists don't usually like to think like that. Like, oh, we're good enough, they'll come to us. It's not the way it works. You know, you've got to learn all those intricacies of business. So, and of course, I still am learning and will continue to learn business probably forever. But that big piece of education regarding business is one of the headed monsters. I think finances, I think, you know, physical therapists, it's not like we come out with this booming income to loan ratio. I mean, it's kind of a struggle for us to pay off loans. That's no lie. So how do you go about confidently getting do you get a business loan, or do you, you know, work with other people that could support you? That's kind of tough. You got to pay off your loans, and it's not like we're all driving Mercedes off the bat. If you haven't noticed, you know, there's some disgruntled people and frustrated people with how hard they work and how much are they getting paid. So not only how am I going to survive that, but how am I going to start putting something to the side to invest for the business aspect of it? How much time do you have? I mean, a lot of us got married, having kids usually after grad school, so you start that continuum a little bit later, and you don't have as much time as you thought you would have or that you could have to start this business. And then there's one little message too of health insurance. I mean, kind of as ironic as it is for me charging cash pay PT, you know, I kind of saw in a forum this guy said, well, if I'm going to charge cash pay, I'm going to pay cash pay for physicians and only the best. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of money. And that's like, I at this point in my life, I need health insurance. I need that. We just had a newborn, you know, and so that's a must for us right now. So, you know, whether that's, can the wife get it at some point, or do you pay out of pocket for a marketplace, which is a ton of money and not too much back. So I know you asked for one thing to keep you at night, but I think those four things compose that big monster. And a lot of us probably aren't saying these things that are limiting us, but I think subconsciously it's going through the back of their mind of, never mind, I'm not going to start this thing. I got to pay my loans, or I don't have time for that. I want to enjoy my Saturday nights and Sundays. And to be honest with you, if you don't look to invest time on the weekends or additional time, despite your 40-hour week or however you want to split that up, it's challenging. So I think those four things would make up the one big problem of how do you step aside and do this on your own.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, those are very common examples of what pretty much everybody goes through starting out a company. I mean, me and Ben can certainly relate. When I was starting off, I had those same thoughts. And, you know, what the direction that I took to handle those financial questions was to do per diem work at the hospital around here, which paid a really great wage for a new grad. I was like super fortunate, came in right before they changed all of the pay rates. So, you know, thank you.
Yeah.
But, you know, you make ends meet, and you said it best. It's really the sacrifice. Mm-hmm. It's the sacrifice that you need to make. And this is a major disclaimer for everybody out there. If you are going to become an entrepreneur and expect success to fall into your lap, you're fooling yourself, and you're going to go down a rabbit hole that you do not want to go down. So if you are not committed to sacrifice, if you're not committed to years and years of hard work, determination, weekends, giving up some of the time that you could be spending with your family and spending with your friends, and, you know, hoping that they're there to just be emotionally supportive of the decisions that you make, entrepreneurship is not for you, and I wouldn't recommend it. Now, the other side of that is entrepreneurship is also incredibly rewarding. So if you are willing to go down that journey and you're willing to make those sacrifices in, you know, I would call it the short term, but it's like the shortest long term. You know, you're going to be sacrificing for a while, and you got to be passionate about it. It's got to be part of who you are. So if you're willing to do that, there are so many tremendous upsides, like owning your own business, getting to stroll into your office whenever you want to, being able to, you know, work with friends, or do whatever, you know, do what makes you happy. You know,
take consultation calls from Disneyland.
Take consultation calls from Disneyland and have unlimited upside potential. That's a big thing with PTs. There's quote unquote a ceiling to how much we can make as an employee of another company.
Right.
So those are things that you do need to consider when making that choice to become an entrepreneur. But again, you know, words of caution, be careful, because if it's not for you, it's not for you, and it doesn't have to be for everybody.
Absolutely. Nice.
So Chad and Ben, this is the part of the webinar here where we really want to get some interaction between the two of you. So Chad, what would be great is if you can think of some questions that you have that you feel could help you in your entrepreneurial journey for Ben, that he could potentially answer for you and the rest of the audience, because I know there's going to be a ton of people out there who have very, very similar questions.
Nice. That's awesome. And we could probably hear day and night, day and night, day and night asking questions. I kind of like to make it applicable too, just even for hindsight. So even those listening, I'd like to preface for this question. What are the first 3 things any potential business owner should do when they get started? And I know that's open-ended, but that was a question I first faced, and I'd kind of like to hear almost retrospectively what goes through your head to give them a great starting point.
Sure. It's funny because you mentioned those 4-headed monsters that you had, and I was thinking, yeah, that sounds pretty familiar, you know. And like sometimes the 4 is 3, sometimes 3 is 2, sometimes 2 is 20.
Right.
And the grind of it is pretty normal. It's Brett, I love what you said about, you know, if entrepreneurship isn't for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. And it may come at different phases of your life. You know, when you're in certain phases of your life, it might be a good time to be a startup entrepreneur. At other times, it might be a good time to exit or put that on the back burner and have your business partners do more while you might have to, you know, take a lesser cut. I would say the startup entrepreneur lifestyle truly is a lifestyle. It's a choice. It's taking on a lot of business risk, a lot of financial risk, a lot of personal risk, a lot of sacrifice. It is taking the time to literally clear your field so that you can have a firm foundation to build your dream. And so those 3 things, if I had to name them, number 1 would be finances. However you want to approach it. I get this question a lot. Should I take on investors? Should I take on a small business loan? Should I try to do this from the grounds up? And my answer to you is it depends on your risk tolerance and speed to scale. How long do you want to do this for? Because if you do this, you know, from your own pocket, it may take you a decade to build what it may take you a year to build with an investor. But now with an investor, you don't own all of your own company. You have to report to other people. And if you compare an investor to, say, a bank loan, well, the bank loan is going to want money back pretty much right away because you have interest payments. Whereas the investors, you might have a more flexible understanding on what their stock option rights are, and you know when they are supposed to get their dividends and distributions and so on and so forth. You just have to define for yourself what it looks like for you to clear that field. How big of a field do you want to have, and how quickly do you want to build that, you know, your own Disneyland, if you will. The second thing is make sure you have a marketing plan, even before a business plan. You know, a lot of people, I feel the business plan is really just a discipline. It's a physical discipline of writing down, this is what I want to do. And there's plenty of psychological research that if you write it down, you do it, or at least you're more likely to do it. The marketing plan to me is more important in that now that you have this plan of what you want your business to look like, how do you actually grow it from the grounds up? What kind of, using the house analogy, you know, what kind of lumber do you need? What kind of infrastructure do you need? Again, what's your speed to scale? How quickly do you want to get this thing growing? Because every single hump in scaling requires that much more time and that much more resources and that much more sacrifice on your part as a startup entrepreneur and business owner. The final thing I would say is this truly your passion? Is this idea part of who you are? And really make that established, because I've seen plenty of people dabble in the startup entrepreneur lifestyle, and it really is. It's kind of like, let me try it out. It's kind of like, let me try out surfing, or let me try out martial arts, or let me try out horseback riding. Versus, I don't care how difficult this is. I am going to pursue this, and this is going to be part of me. You have to kind of have that gut check of making sure this is it. And this comes from somebody who's pretty much risk averse and has a lot of corporate America background, which doesn't think favorably on startup entrepreneurism, because corporate America is all about taking something that is already big and just making it slightly bigger every day by day versus taking nothing and literally turning it into everything that you are.
So just for everybody out there, I just wanted to talk a little bit about scale. That's basically a term that is, can you take 1 unit of something and make it into 2, 4, 8, 16, 32? So that's talking about the growth of a business and thinking about how that business is going to grow and how fast it's going to grow.
Awesome. That was stellar. That was perfect. All right. So another question actually pretty prevalent for me now, and I think even for those who would first go about starting a business. When and how should you go about, I guess, I don't know if it's fair to call it purchasing, but working with a health or business coach, and kind of what would they be able to offer to help guide you throughout that process?
So what you're referring to really is better termed as an advisor. And whether you purchase them or you purchase them through equity, or you simply find somebody really nice and ask nicely and get it for free, whatever the case is, it's not so much about the price tag, it's about the match. It's about making sure that whoever you bring on as your counsel truly has your best interest at heart. My own personal example, I didn't have to pay for it. I just found a mentor, and maybe mentorship is probably better than even advisor. Is you find a mentor, and my mentor essentially promoted me outside of the organization. You know, in not so many words and saying all the right words, because he was in a high position where he has to say the right things every day. He essentially told me, look, if there are opportunities outside of the organization, promote yourself that way and pursue them. And that was his way of saying, be more. And he told me those words, be more.
Nice. Going
back to, you know, the purchasing really has to do with your psychology and your behavior as a person. What's your personality? There's a wise saying I've heard once, that if you pay attention. And I remember taking one-on-one lessons with this one martial arts coach way back in the day. And for the most part, I still remember everything because I paid like, you know, $100-something an hour for that stuff. And so after $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, $9,000 over X amount of years, like I remember basically everything. I may not remember every word he said, but the essence of everything has stayed with me. And so if that's part of who you are, then yeah, pay for something. And you can pay for a health business coach, or a business coach, or a finance coach, or a marketing coach, or a personal development coach, an entrepreneurship coach. You can pay for any kind of coach or consultant that you want, from anywhere from, you know, $50 an hour to a couple $100s a month to several $1,000s a month, to even, hey, you're going to be part of this 18-month plan and you're going to pay me $3,000 a month and you're going to love it. And so it really has to do with the match, not necessarily the numbers. When do you want to do it? As soon as possible. Get mentorship. The mentorship could just be, you know, your friend, like your best bud. It could be your family members, whether it's your spouse or your siblings, your parents. It can be one of your childhood friends. It might even be your frenemy from work, which is totally cool because you need somebody to sanity check you. But also when they sanity check you and they give you something in the negative, that drive, once again, as an entrepreneur, takes over no matter what, still within, you know, reasonability. Right. So definitely make sure the match for your mentor or advisor or coach is there first. Get it as soon as possible so that you can avoid early pitfalls. I can't state that part enough. Your mentor will help you avoid early pitfalls, common stumbling blocks that are common to every entrepreneur's experience. And they'll do it in a way, again, that is in your best interest. And I think that's how you know it's the right person.
Yep.
Perfect.
Just two things on that. One of the factors that's going to determine how fast you can grow a business is the amount of information that you have. Seek people all the time. You don't necessarily need only one mentor. It's really great to have one person that you know you can call upon with almost any question that you have. And on that same note, people are willing to help you. You just need to ask. So if you see someone who sounds like, hey, wow, this person might have the information that I need because they have done it before, just ask them. And likely they will engage in a conversation with you. And mentorship is even a two-way street. So if you have something that you can provide for them, something that maybe you have more information that they have on, maybe you are part of the millennial generation and they're part of the baby boomers, and the baby boomers have no idea what, who we even are, like how we interact with people. So you can provide them a little bit of information on how what the millennial generation and how they interact. So think about those things.
Awesome.
And the other is a great resource for finding mentors is on LinkedIn. So you can search for LinkedIn for terms that are within your business entity, and then just look for people who potentially even appear like experts. Reach out to them and have conversations. If it's not the person for you, if it's not a good fit, then you don't need to call upon that person again. But seek that information readily, and you don't need to stick with just one person.
It's great information. It really is. So I appreciate all that. I think the next question is, we kind of talked about finances, and it can be really restricting at first. And so for me, like, I've actually started, working full-time elsewhere and just kind of slowly chiseling away, working on the side, that kind of thing. How do people start? And then for me, how do I end up deciding when the time is right to either transition into part-time, or when do you make the plunge, or could you make the plunge off the bat? I think that's, when I listen to podcasts, I don't know if I've heard like a nice recipe to get people there. It's usually been off of just gut, which I admire, and just heart to, I'm just gonna do this. But is there like some sort of way or recipe to understand, is this the right time for me to make the plunge, and how do you figure that out?
So I'm going to point this with a quick shout out to my mentorship group, the Pathfinders with UpDoc. And something that we cover in this mentorship group is something called a decision matrix. And it's to back that up, in terms of human psychology, is what we know about the human brain. We make decisions off of our emotional centers of our brain, in our temporal lobe. If you're really into psychology, right? It's that amygdala, the hippocampal region, all those things that have to do with our early development, how we associate certain things. That's how we make decisions. That's our yes center. Our no center tends to be the front of our brain, which is the usual joke. That's why teenagers don't think straight, because your brain isn't fully developed. So you don't make good decisions. And I'm sharing this because no matter what, when is the right time? Is there a recipe? There is, but your choice to taste or try that recipe is still going to be a Boolean emotional exercise. It's going to be a true, false, yes, no, I'm doing this or I'm not, and in which steps. So going back to the decision matrix, what a decision matrix is borrowing from accounting principles, and it weights certain factors of your decision in a numerical order, kind of like the Likert scale. So one way is, say there's 4 factors of your decision. There's, say, family, finance, and perhaps, say, location, and then your work-life balance. So if you have those 4, what you do is you rank them in order of what's most important to you. And then between several decisions, say, chip away at it slowly and bootstrap, do part-time, or take the plunge, you compare these 3, and you basically on your gut go, okay, well, if I'm gonna just chip away at it slowly, I'm gonna have really high family score, but I'm gonna have a medium finance score, and I'm gonna have basically perfect work-life balance, but I'm gonna feel miserable about it. And whatever other factors you have, and you compare that to each one. And what you'll notice is when you put this composite score together, and there's a whole, we can share a link later. There's a whole thing of doing this. When all this puts together, you'll see different ratings, kind of like the Olympics. You'll see something's at 5.2, or something else is at 9.1, something else is at maybe 8.7. And this is a way for you to gut check yourself, because it's very much like flipping a coin, right? If you like, I don't know if I want to eat Chinese or Japanese today, or Mexican or Greek, right? And you go, okay, well, heads for Mexican. You flip the coin. When the coin lands and you see the result, you're either intrinsically excited about it or a little bit disappointed. Everybody is, right? And this is a way for you to recipe that out and go, oh, you know what? I'm a little bit intrinsically excited. Cool. Maybe this is the decision for me. Or you might go, no, I think I need to start this yesterday and take the plunge. So
nice.
Something like a decision matrix is a good way to give an objective reflection of what your subjective decision innately is going to be. And by doing so, you can track it over time. Example for myself, when I finished my MBA, and this is your classic entrepreneur experience, is I finished the MBA because I wanted to be in executive healthcare leadership. I wanted to be in a big organization where I can basically go, look, all musculoskeletal care goes to a PT first. Like, I wanted to be able to do that and like put that on my life tile, right? Like, just game of life, was able to control an entire health system. All musculoskeletal care goes to a DPT. Like, that was like a life goal at the time. But every place I went, they saw I had a DPT and an MBA. Oh boy, you should go and be a rehab director or an area manager. I was like, I already did that. That's not what I want to do. And so probably over 500 MBA applications later, they all wanted that. That was part of the factor that drove me to this entrepreneur journey and lifestyle. And one of the avenues was potentially going to be joining the Disney Institute, but that would have been as an intern. which I felt was probably not the best match for somebody who's gone through grad school twice. So in doing that, my family did the same thing. My wife and I sat down and we did these different decision matrix of all these different possibilities of where we might go. And no matter how we try to futz with the data, staying in San Diego was always winning out by just leagues and bounds. And it was one way for us to almost stack the chips against what we knew in our hearts to be the right choice and say, no, there has to be a way for us to go out to Florida. There has to be.
Right.
And there wasn't. There just isn't. And that's, again, a good recipe-based, if you will, a good objective measure to check your subjective inclinations.
Awesome. No, that's perfect. I'll probably even go back and listen to that a few times. I think you had a lot of good nuggets in there. So I really appreciate that. We kind of talked a little bit earlier about the fact that a lot of people don't know what physical therapists do, including gym managers. And so here I was trying to, work my way into the gym and just had this awesome idea and notion that I would walk in and talk to a few gym managers, explain what's going on. I'd say, this is the cut or per lease, and things would just magically work out, right? Definitely not. Okay. So if you're going to try that and you haven't tried it yet, PTs, be careful. And hopefully you can learn right now about what we can do. Case in point, how do you find a gym? And I'll use the word to find the most fertile environment for you to grow. And how can you help educate, meanwhile conducting business, to gym managers what you guys are looking to do? Because I had some gym managers, and believe me, I failed a few times before I found this awesome gym that actually kind of had a sense of what could be done and the potential with working with physical therapists and the synergy that we could do together and personal trainers and stuff. But I had a few that were just throwing out numbers like 50-50. For every patient you take 50, I get 50. And then some were fearful of, you're going to get to know all my patients and then you're going to go set up shop somewhere else. So in hindsight, and if I were to move and set up somewhere else, I could use this as well. How do you provide some information up front to gel that out and to make that work and to find a place that's right for you?
I think to find the right place is probably the key place to start. Business is a game of relationships. I used to say that business is behaviors guided by rules in numbers and relationships driven by value. And so if you take that kind of diamond, if you will, of business is behaviors driven by the rules, or guided by the rules of numbers, because you have to have numbers, right? You have to be in the black, can't be in the red. And relationships, because it's a behavioral component of people relating to people driven by value. When you have that in your head, you can almost map out, if you will, using this model, your unique value proposition versus the classical model, which is jobs to be done, gains made, pains killed or pains alleviated. They say it all different ways now to be politically correct, because the word kill isn't great. But I mentioned this for a couple of reasons. For everybody watching, and Chad, you've obviously already learned this, is make sure that you partner with the right people. Whether it's a business arrangement, an operating agreement, a profit share or revenue share, whatever the arrangement is, make sure the people is that relational component is the right fit. Otherwise, you're going to be in headache city hell for the rest of your life for that particular arrangement. Then we speak to the branding piece of, how do we share what we do in a meaningful way to both the general consumer as well as the potential business associates that we're going to have. And I really think the best way to go about this isn't to brand physical therapy. I think that's where most clinics, everybody in our field does this wrong. There was a famous Harvard professor quote that said, people don't want to buy the drill, they want to buy the 1/4-inch hole in the wall because they want to get stuff done around their house. Nice. And so what you really want to do is you want to brand or share the value you bring, not how you bring it. You want to share from their perspective how your presence is going to add more value to their lives. And the V word value gets thrown around a lot, but really, what jobs are going to get done for them? How are they going to make more gains with your presence than losses? And how are you going to prevent losses or take away some headaches from their daily lives as business owners, as operators, as managers, as healthcare and fitness consumers? When you brand those things, you don't need to think about the label physical therapy, even though that's so much about our identity. And this is a classical marketing equation problem, is brand image versus brand identity. The identity is what we know we can do. I know I can help you so much, but The brand image is what the healthcare consumer or potential strategic partners imagine us in our heads to be. So if they imagine ultrasound and they imagine traction tables and they imagine parallel bars and more of like an inpatient situation, then we need to speak to that, not who we are. And probably one of the best ways to pursue, the specific situation of like a micro practice within a gym or within a yoga studio or subletting from a medical practice or even a chiropractor's office or a dental office or optometry office is really to see where their possible gains and possible pain problems can be and how you can fit that picture. And then when you speak their language with how you do, it becomes an automatic fit. They're no longer thinking of you as a physical therapist or somebody who's from the physical therapy industry. They're thinking about you yourself, that business relationship. That is how you get that much deeper and making sure also that's the right fit. And then all of a sudden, it's interesting. You'll notice this, that your customers all of a sudden come to your defense. And by proxy, the defense of physical therapy is that you'll hear the story. I hear it all the time. It's like, yeah, I had this patient. I couldn't get them to stop talking, but they just kept telling me about how they were, walking down Trader Joe's or Ralph's or whatever. They overheard some murmurs about how bad their physical therapist was. Oh, you should come see mine. We do all these different things. Like, that doesn't sound like physical therapy. I know, right? And that's because you have done such a good job addressing the consumer or the end user pain point rather than trying to teach them what your identity is.
Nice. And
from there, their imagination of you becomes your identity. And that is a very scalable brand standard.
I think you're so right. And just to kind of touch on that, actually the first gym that I went to was just an awesome couple, lovely couple. They built this gym from the ground up. And you could just see, and I was obviously inexperienced at this time about all of what you just said, which was brilliant and spot on. You could see their eyes light up in the sense of like, oh no, they just seem so apprehensive. This guy's going to take all my patients over. And I just kind of had that sense from the start. And it's because I was going right against their brand and who they were and their identity, rather than informing them of kind of who we are, what we do, and how we can work together. So I think, I appreciate that answer. I think it was just spot on. Another question I have is, hopefully as you start growing, and this is maybe for a little bit down the road, but at some point you'll reach a threshold where you're like, man, I just can't do everything on my own. So how and when do you start to hire on other team members, including but not limited to, you could have someone working at the front desk, a bookkeeper, an accountant, a lawyer. And I think all these names get thrown around and all I see are number signs, money signs. Like, I have to pay how much? I'm just trying to get off the ground. And here I am trying to play the legal game, play by taxes. Do I need a lawyer? So just give me some information, if you don't mind, from that stem and what we can do with that.
So you're talking about the speed to scale humps that are very commonly, I can't think of any industry that doesn't go through this. Is you grow to a certain scale, now you need more, capital, whether it's equipment or knowledge capital, like by hiring a CPA or
Right.
or outsourcing to some kind of competency that you don't want to grow internally. Very, very common. And it comes in phases and it gets higher and higher and higher, and it's a natural process of growing a business. The when question, we can actually point that back to your decision matrix, because it was fun hearing this from an HR consultant's point of view. All right, every state has certain laws that you have to follow regarding human resources. And then there's different financial consequences that come about it, and then certain legal consequences. And she was joking with me that there are certain companies out there that take a look at this as a calculated risk. Well, if we're only caught once every 5 years, then we're good.
Right.
and that's how certain businesses operate. I don't advocate for that. But what I would advocate for is the money, the dollar signs leaving you. How much is that worth to you now versus how much is that worth to your headaches and problems and the fact that you have to wait longer later? Because I guarantee you, if certain things are not within your knowledge capital competencies or your general competencies as a business, you're probably better off outsourcing it some way pretty early on. I have an MBA. We still hired an accountant for our taxes, and and it's just one of those. I have an MBA in marketing, and in some of our projects, we still outsourced to different accelerators to get their ideas on the situation, because you can be very, very well blind to your own, your own penchants and proclivities. So as when you get that mix of, okay, if I keep doing this myself, I'll save a couple bucks now, but it might take me another year or two to get to where I want to be, versus, hey, if I just take the hit and buy whatever the service is, or whatever the product is, or whatever the competency is in getting a CPA or a JD to write up your corporate bylaws and your stock option plan, so that you're protected when new investors come in, or all your partners are protected, so you don't get put out of the majority later on in life, or you hire like a graphics design team, or a videography team, or a media team, or a marketing team, or a human resource or payroll solution. That's like probably human resource and payroll, probably one of the first things that you'll have to deal with. I tell people, do it as soon as you can, so long as you're not going to hate your soul for spending the money on it. And if you can live with that, and we've all spent money we don't have. We all have. Yeah. But business is a calculated risk. And more importantly, business is a living organism, really. You have to feed it for it to grow. You can only have it be lean for so long before it loses its ability entirely, and the market has passed you by.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
A couple things to add to that as well. The more experience you have with those things, the more experience you have growing a business, will allow you to anticipate these linchpins or bottlenecks in your process earlier on. So when you know where they're going to come from, whether it be on the accounting side of things, on the hiring side of things, on the payroll side of things. By the way, all of those topics could be their own webinars, and we could talk about them all day long, and they're all very, very important topics. On the legal side of things, all of these things can be bottlenecks. And then, Chad, what you were describing there as well is even on the personnel side of things. Do I need to hire on another trainer? All of that stuff will come with experience. If you have someone, for instance, Chad, a partner who has potentially gone through these things in the past, would you bring a different type of expertise? Again, a completely different conversation. That could also be helpful, because they might understand some of those pitfalls or some of those bottlenecks that you're going to experience along the way, and planning for them early will allow you to scale much faster. So the long term is going to, your future, your growth potential is going to look, or the velocity to growth, I should call it, is going to look much faster and much higher for you. But if you're just starting out and you've never gone through these things, a really great indicator is when you don't have any more time left in the day. And then you need to look at your day and find out what is your core competency. That's typically the thing that you want to continue to do. A lot of times you can read the E-Myth, really great book. That will talk to you about thinking about yourself as a business versus thinking yourself as a physical therapist or a part of your business, working in your business, working on your business, two different concepts. But really the indicator for you, I think in your situation too, Chad, is going to be, is my day filled to capacity? If I put any more effort in, can I get any more out of it? And then at that point, you look at what are the parts of my day that I can give off to somebody else, pay them a fee, which I can get a return on. Even let's say it's an admin assistant. Someone else takes care of all your admin tasks, so you can do all of these other revenue generating things that you need to do, building more relationships, building more sales. That money to you is not spent, it's invested, and it's worth more than the dollars that you put in for the dollars that you're going to get out.
An investment mindset is so big. It's absolutely crucial. And it's one of those, you have to spend money to make money. And it's a truth of business. And I think that, that's one of those pitfalls that I think, like I said, a partner or a mentor, Chad, would be perfect for. They would be able to tell you right away all these different things that you want to watch out for.
And I think there's some great information, even for those who, if it were me like a year ago, I'd probably go, I might want to save up money to invest in a health coach or a mentorship or something like that, a health coach off the bat, so that I can plan for all these hurdles. So they're not, I'm just wandering about, oh, wow, here comes a big obstacle. What do I do now? And they'll have planned that out for you. And it all comes with aligning your expectations. What am I going to expect for this next year? And as everyone's seeing, for me, it's been raw and learning. And, it's because I want to do the right thing. But as we're listening, hopefully others can be guided to a better spot sooner rather than later, and not kind of go through all the work. So this has been some awesome information. Brett, do we have time for a question, one more or two?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. I really want to pick your brain in marketing, especially with your background, and I think that's a huge topic of interest for me. I'd kind of like to first, it's got a two-headed question, kind of go into the online media, and I think that's just been huge lately. I feel like everyone's got an ad now. I think I even saw Waze has an ad, that GPS app that people can buy. I'm like, seriously? How do people start to understand when and where and how they can spend money with online media? Maybe one's a little bit more profitable than another, and then obviously have the freedom to provide some expertise with general marketable principles too.
So it's fun. Marketing obviously is a big passion of mine. We built an entire company based on marketing and media needs, digital media needs, websites, ads, social media marketing, email marketing, all that stuff. So obviously I love it. Not to mention I have a degree in it. And so it's just, and I came to love it because I realized that true marketing never feels slimy. And Brett, you alluded that before, is how to sell. And Chad, you mentioned that too. Selling can sometimes feel a little slimy for healthcare clinicians because we're supposed to be pure, right? In the ivory tower of being a clinician. And while that might be true in our clinical practice, we still need to realize that we are in a business world. And so how does somebody get started? Are there champion channels? Absolutely. There's actually a piece called Making Champions of Your Marketing Channels that I put out. It's free. It's one of the many different installments at Updoc Media that is free. It's part of our business collection. And in there, I talk about you have to have 3 primary online media channels to be able to both attract, or actually first have somebody find you, attract them, and then have them convert as a customer. Nice. And so for everybody, you need at least one discoverable platform. Typically, that's going to be your website. It's going to be your anchor. Then you're going to have an attraction platform. For most people, it's going to be social media. For others, it's going to be email marketing. For others, it's going to be Snapchat. For others, it's going to be SMS marketing. And then finally, you're going to need to have a direct conversion channel. A lot of times, that's just a good old-fashioned phone call. Other times it's email, other times it's text, other times it's actually goes back to Snapchat. And it depends on your ideal customer and the available market segments, because they're not always the same. You might want to work with only runners, but there may not be that many runners in your area. So you might have to work with something that's close to it. They might be a more like a triathlon community, or it might be a climbing community, but everybody has knees. So you want to make sure that you have those 3 dimensions. You have to be able to be found, be attractive, and then have direct conversion line. In terms of the actual platforms of which are more, have a better return on investment, that has to do with testing. Speaking to the clinician's mind, right? Is a PA gonna work? I don't know until I try. Right. I have a good idea that it probably does, right? Because there's a lot of good evidence that say a PA to the shoulder is gonna help with shoulder elevation. We kind of generally know this. And we generally know that Google AdWords is a pretty good system. We generally know that Facebook ads is a pretty good system because it can trickle also into Instagram. We generally know that email marketing works because it's pretty much very cheap. We also generally know that email marketing doesn't have the highest conversion rates, but because it is cheap, it's not a hard sell for you to be able to do that yourself, or to task that to your marketer or your marketing agency or whatever, or even an intern. So you have all these things. A lot of it has to do with go to where the audience is. Nice. If you have an audience that is young, and I'm talking truly young, like 25 and under, then you're gonna have to really look at Snapchat and Instagram. Now, if you look at, if you're part of a more traditional practice, say 40 plus, dipping into the Medicare population, then it's all about websites and reviews. And so you just have to do your market research. Again, that goes back to the original question that you asked early on of, have that marketing strategy. How are you gonna grow this business? Where are your ideal marketing where are your ideal markets? Where are your ideal customers? Where do they intersect? And where are they physically in the digital world? Are they in the search bar? Are they on Google Maps? Are they on Yelp? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Snapchat? Do they like phone calls? Do they like fax? Do they like email? Do they like text messages? Where they are is where you should be. And then you have to test to make sure that your hypothesis is correct, and then keep retesting to refine it so that your return on investment to these marketing channels becomes greater and greater.
I want to ask a question real quick to branch off that. How do you track, how would you best track and go about that? When you say test, that concept is perfect. It makes so much sense for physical therapists. We have to use our clinical reasoning. It's like, well, I think this might work, but I got to test it. So how do you get the data back with the marketing to figure out, is this working or not?
You can go by channels. You can go by campaigns. My favorite, which most startup entrepreneurs tend to appreciate later, is doing a financial analysis. So by channels is pretty simple. It is on every single intake form or intake process, or we call it the 3 R's: reception, reactivation, and reviews. So every single lead and customer you receive, you want to know A, what their lead source was, and B, what their conversion journey is. It's not always the easiest ask, because it might be kind of inappropriate depending on your circumstances, your brand, and what kind of service experience you want. But even if you have like only a sample of it, say you have 1,000 patients in a block of time, and this is your first test. So you've thrown some money at Facebook, you've thrown some money at AdWords, and you've thrown some money to make sure somebody posts regularly for you on Facebook and edit some videos together, whatever. Right. So then what you do is you go, okay, out of these 1,000 people, how do they hear of me? If 200 came from word of mouth, 500 came from Google, and the rest don't remember, well, I'm gonna go, okay, so I'm gonna spend a lot more money on Google AdWords.
Nice.
And then you also have to track the conversion journey. If the 500 came from Google and they all went to my website and they called there directly, that means I need to spend more money on the next version of my website. However, if the 500 went to my website, checked out my Facebook, and called from my click to call button on Facebook, that means Facebook is still important. It's just not the ads on Facebook that are as important. I need to still spend resources on the Facebook ecosystem. So that's how you test it by channels and cross channels. Tracking it by campaigns is a little bit more quarter-based or sometimes month-based, and it has to do with how you want to campaign for your brand. Am I going to make this quarter all about knees, or all about swimming, or like in San Diego, all about surfing? If everybody has wrecked shoulders by September, it's because they've never surfed before, but San Diego is an awesome place to learn. And so now you want to figure that out, right? And so what you do is you go, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of money on all my platforms based on shoulder, and see how that does to something based on, say, the general brand compared to low back, compared to whatever problems, again, that I'm trying to solve. And it may not be body parts. It might be baseball season. San Diego is a huge youth baseball arena. We send little leagues out to championships all the time. And in your various regions, you're going to have similar things that are regionally specific based on your regional culture. Finally, my favorite is financial analysis. To me, this is the most significant because it doesn't assume that the different platforms are exclusive and independent of each other. And I think that's a danger. It's a very big danger for a startup entrepreneur and any kind of person in a business management situation where they have that authority to go, okay, well, I didn't see any new patients from Facebook. We're going to cut our spending altogether. And that could be a terrible, terrible thing, because it might be that Facebook is a critical part of the customer conversion journey. And without that, they won't buy. A classic example of this in supply chain management comes from department stores. Is a lot of department stores back in the 80s and 90s found that it was very profitable for them to lose money by having a baby section. Why? Because young mothers would spend more in the toddler section. They would definitely have a direct profit loss on every baby item, but they would get 3 times the spending in the toddler section. And this makes sense because I have a son and he's 4. And so I just went through this, right? Like, I'm not going to buy baby stuff. And Chad, you're going through this here. You're not going to buy that much baby stuff because you're going to outgrow it tomorrow.
Right.
But I'm going to buy a whole bunch of toddler stuff because I know they'll always grow into it.
Exactly. Nice.
So that's one of the things that big department stores learned early on in these financial analysis stuff. When Excel spreadsheets and different softwares came out, we were able to analyze this stuff and go, oh wow, losing $20,000 a month on baby items is totally worth our inventory because we make a profit of $100,000 a month on toddler items. Right. So using the financial analysis way, whether it's just as simple as doing a trend line, like a senior in high school chemistry would be able to do, or doing something that require some training in accounting and economics, whatever the case is well worth your while to make sure you compare apples to apples. This year's apples to last year's apples. Next quarter's apples to the quarter after that's apples and oranges and so on, so that you do have a garden variety that you can grow an ecosystem from, rather than being super laser focused on one thing. And in our field, it would be physician referrals, right? Oh yeah, we get all sorts of referrals. Well, what happens when the healthcare economic forces make it so that, like in Canada, physicians have no incentive to refer?
Right.
Now what do you do?
exactly. Yeah.
Right? You're stuck because all you've ever invested in is energy stock and not anything else.
Yeah. That's some great insight. And I think it gives us some freedom too. I think coming from a science background, we think it has to be science-based and it has to be perfect. But kind of what you're saying is there's a little bit of an art to it. You know, do your research, understand your demographics and around it, and then test and retest. And that's kind of what we do anyways. And here we are, you know, get freaked out about trying to figure out how to market this, market that. And then, you know, it makes sense to bring someone else on board to take it to the next step with the financial analysis and everything you're saying. But it's a really good insight, and I appreciate that. I'd like to wrap up with just one last little question. It's kind of a niche question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And it kind of ties into marketing. So a lot of times they say, you know, get in the community, local community. And I'm really excited because I'm sponsoring a local bodybuilding show here in a few months. And obviously that's the perfect clientele for me. I love to get in there, help the athletes. My question is, and this could be for runners or anyone who's kind of going to a local community event, how do you get the maximum out of that? You know, squeezing that orange, how do you get the most orange juice out of that? And obviously it's well known that you should get in the community, build a good word of mouth and these kind of things. But now that I'm getting in the community, it's like, what do I do? You know, so I don't know if you have any really good, I guess, analysis or sense from your market background of how, again, yeah, it comes back to it. How can you get the most orange juice out of that orange for that event?
I think the best perspective for you for event-based marketing in community branding, which are related but separate issues, is you do want to get the most juice out of every orange, but it takes a lot of oranges to make good orange juice. So each event you can definitely see as an orange, nice. But it will take multiple exposures to your direct community to become a thing.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Early on, the mistake that is commonly made is, boy, I've got to really get it. I've got to just get this. I'm going to get every contact. I'm going to have email sign-up sheets and things printed out and free this and free that all over the place. And the problem with that is, and this probably comes from just my bartending background. You mentioned oranges, and earlier today somebody tweeted at me, wasn't Ben Fung a bartender? I was like, I was. And, you know, whenever you work with oranges or lemons or limes, any citrus element, when you squeeze the rind too hard, you expose the tannins, right? You expose the bitterness and the weird flavors that we don't like in stuff like orange juice or martinis or whatever. And you know, first would be, don't squeeze it too hard. If this is your first event, if this is your first anything, right? Genuinely be there to be there. People can smell from a mile away, hey, I want to just get this thing going and I want to get the most out of it. And that comes across as disingenuous. Yeah. It comes across as you being salesy, you really trying to just work the community and get in their pockets. If you're there and you only have one clear call to action, which is something that I always recommend, is don't allow your prospective consumers or prospective customers to have analysis paralysis. That's one of the lessons we've learned in the grocery industry in Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's pays a little bit off the margin for better products, but more importantly, they're actually not that much more expensive. The reason they're that much more dominant and a lot of people like them is because they only have a couple of things for you to choose. You get to choose one of 2 peanut butters. You get to choose of one of 3 red wines. You get to choose of one of 2 cheeses. You know, like they give you 2 awesome choices, and you don't go there going, oh man, which one is that one? 3 cents cheaper because there's a sale today. And if I use this coupon, right? Like that causes people to get into that analysis paralysis point, and then they don't buy. They just go, well, I was here, and they move on. So in the event, have one very clear call to action. Whatever you feel it is that they would like, not what leads has the most lead generators for you, not what will have that best conversion rate. Genuinely go, okay, what would my bodybuilding community, what would my colleagues here, because I'm part of the sport too, what would they really, really like to know or have or get from me? What can I give that would be very memorable to them just to get to know me in that relationship? Because again, business is behaviors based off relationship, numbers driven by value. So bring that to them and go, okay, this is just the first squeeze. It's just the first squeeze. I'm going to get what I can without pressing the rind into the point where I get bitterness. And then I'm going to get ready for my next one and my next one and my next one until you really you become an anchor of that community. So whatever that case would be for bodybuilders and in the strength training world in your specific region, and the interests and different things. Like there's all sorts of, like I would say like food and beer is a big deal here in San Diego. Like, and you know, and the beach culture. And so you can probably weave anything like that into a marketing campaign here. So whatever is unique over there, use it and just get to smile at people. Probably the coolest recollection, and this is just me going crazy now because it's the last question and I get to do this.
Go ahead.
Take all day now. One of the coolest experience I've ever had was when I was voluntold to go to the YMCA and do a spine screen because they were missing somebody to fill this like one spot. And they didn't give me anything. I didn't have trifolds. I didn't have like a poster or an easel. I didn't have a banner. I didn't even have like a tablecloth. It was like this old rotted picnic table from the YMCA. I got this printout, and I think it was dot matrix from the medical printer back in acute care. You know what I'm talking about? It was like spine screen, right? And there I am in my scrubs and my lab coat, but this particular health fair, probably similar to what you're going to experience, would allow certain numbers of people every 30 minutes or so to come in there and peruse all the various booths, including my rotting wood table, spine screen table. And the really cool thing that happened was that table expanded. I was at the end, which in that case was actually really terrible because I didn't have anything fantastic to share, right? Nothing visual. But what I did garner was a crowd because I had nothing to sell. I didn't even have flyers of, hey, come to my kettlebell class.
Nice,
it was, okay, let me screen some spines, right? And what ended up happening was we pulled out all the YMCA basketball bleachers on that side so that we can create kind of this little like Agora audience. And there was 20 to 30 people out of 50 people that I allowed every single half hour to trickle in and out at any given point in time. Some people stay for 2 hours just to watch me do spine screens. And it wasn't like I was doing like high level fellowship stuff. I'm not like a McKinsey diplomat, but I did use some of those very basic principles, the kinesiological things that blow their minds, and and I guarantee you, if I did that regularly, like I probably would have won the best alternative exercise studio in San Diego, but I didn't get the opportunity to do so. It's just kind of a one-off. But the lesson there was just genuinely and authentically be there to help people and make connections.
Awesome.
And, one final point on that, to hone your craft every time, every interaction that you have with someone, ask them, what can I do to improve upon this? What would bring you more value? So that literally the people are going to tell you what you can bring to them that they would then either buy from you or allow you to provide your service for, or they're just going to tell you so much stuff that you would have really never come up with on your own, because they're thinking from that consumer mindset, you're thinking from the practitioner's mindset, and then you meet in the middle with the question. And then when you're going to get that answer, the next time you come around, you can try out all of the new stuff that you've learned from the people that you're going to be providing your service to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's perfect.
Chad, Ben, thank you guys so much. I know we did run over 10 minutes here, but I appreciate you guys both jumping on here. Ben, really informative. Chad, same thing, very, very informative there. We appreciate you stepping somewhat out of your comfort zone there to join us on this presentation here. For everybody in the audience, we do apologize that we didn't have enough time to get to the questions that you guys have for us as well. Potentially we can provide you guys with another webinar in the future. So just look for a couple emails that we will be sending out about that. If you do have any questions for either Ben or for Chad, just leave them in the comments box below, somewhere around this area over here, and we will get you answers to those questions. Ben, where can people contact you if they would want to get in contact with you?
So whatever platform you're comfortable with, all my handles are the same. It's just at Dr. Ben Fung. So that's Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. You can email me, ben@updocmedia.com. And you can even text me, 470-BEN-FUNG. And it goes right to the phone over there.
Nice.
And Chad, same question.
Feel free to reach me on my personal, 269-921-1811. I love to chat with people. I'm not afraid to put my phone out there. I think sometimes people get shy to put it away, but I'd love to have a conversation with people, throw it out there. Website is primemovement.com. The I in prime is a 1. And then keep that in mind when you put in hashtag @PrimeMovement, and on Instagram and Twitter. I like to post all that strength and conditioning workouts and tips that you might have on that. And then feel free to email me as well at 1primemovement@gmail.com. Again, just with the 1, where the I is. I had to put a 1 in front of prime movement because apparently someone else took it, but I don't know what's going on there. So once I get updated on Google, I get the app prime movement, then I don't have to worry about it. But for now, that's where I'm at. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it. It was great. And I'd love to have another chance at this and redemption. And that was fantastic. So I really appreciate it. Great information.
Yeah, and thank you, Chad. And we're excited to follow your story throughout your entrepreneurial conquest. And always feel free to reach out to us if you ever are looking for any advice on any topics. We're always here to help.
Awesome. That was great. Appreciate
All right, everyone. Take care.
Take care.